Welcome to the Upshot, Multi-World Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I'm Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me, Josh Mansfield, on this Thursday, May 23rd. No tournament this weekend. Take a breath, because I don't think we get another week off for like at least a couple months, all the way through October. Europe. So we will all just get ready to go. For the rest, I mean, it's a great stretch. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we're going to start getting more well-attended European tournaments. We've got Portland and the return of Beaver State Fling to the Elite Series. Come on, I'm fired up.
It's gonna be great.
It's gonna be great. Today, we're gonna open up some mail because there's no news, there's no tournament. We just get a chance to dig into your messages. We always love hearing from you. Upshot@ultiworld.com. We read everything. We don't respond that much these days, but we will read your questions on the show if you send them in.
At Pound, the quality of our gear runs deeper than the stitching. That's why we make everything right here in the U.S., employing highly skilled, well-paid professionals. From bomb-proof Cordura fabric to YKK zippers and recycled plastics, we source the highest quality U.S. materials to make the most comfortable, durable pack in disc golf. Our lifetime warranty stays with the pack, not the purchaser. So regardless of how you find us, we will be here to make sure your pack stays on the course and out of the landfill. Pound's integrity is held together with more than just thread.
Let's dive right on in here and pick a first piece of mail. I'll grab something here. We'll start with something simple, and I just want to get your take on this, Josh. This comes from Thomas. He says, Make any part of the OB line inbounds. It's so much easier to see if the disc is touching part of the white line than to see if it's touching a part of the inbounds grass. This would work similarly to soccer and tennis, where you are in the field of play until the entire, sporting object goes past the line. Seeing a gap between the grass and the white line would be such a simple OB call instead of having to check with a magnifying glass to see if there's any white showing. What do you think, Josh?
While I don't think it makes a huge difference in the ease of calling, right? Like whether you're determining if it's broken the barrier outside the OB or broken the barrier on the line, either of those to me feel pretty comparable. But intuitively, this makes so much more sense to me. That this is, I think the same thing when I think like tennis, volleyball. Like if it touches the line, it's inbounds. And so when I see like a disc touching a line, I still have to be like, oh, wait a minute, no, it's not the line. It has to be inside the line. I think the problem, I wonder how that would work in terms of like discs leaning against stakes kind of thing, like where's the line on the stake, like odd things like that. But all in all, I typically agree with Thomas. I think it's more intuitive and closer aligned with other sporting events.
Yeah, okay, let's imagine the stake thing, right? Because if it's leaning on the outside of a stake,
yep.
So we have our stake and it's on the line and it's on the outside. Right now that's clearly OB.
Right, correct.
But what would you say in this case? I think if it was touching the stake, you'd have to put it in the rules. I would say that's in.
Yeah, you would. Probably, yeah.
I would say that would be in. Look, I just think this is, to me, I feel the same way. I often have to like remind myself that the line is out because it's awkward from the usage in other sports. Mm-hmm. And so I don't see why they wouldn't make the change. It seems like a simple clarity change that really doesn't alter anything,
right?
And then it's just nice and clear, like and it wouldn't really change. It wouldn't change that many things. Like if a sidewalk, for instance, is OB, like you'd still have to be across onto the grass side, basically, because there's a micro line of where the concrete meets the grass, and So that doesn't really change. It's just like when there's a painted line on the ground, it would have to be fully across the line as opposed to, you're only talking about like a 2-inch change in most cases from what would be in versus out of bounds. But I do think it's more intuitive that way. So
I think so too.
All right, what do we got next?
Yeah, I think this is a timely question after the OTB Open. George asks, who should be more afraid after OTB, MPO field because of Eagle or the FPO field because of Page?
FPO Page. Page is the second best Circle 2 putter on tour right now, behind Owen. And she's starting to figure it out. And let's not forget that she was dominating everybody 2 years ago. It's not like she's 40.
Right.
Like, I'm not saying that she's going to retake the mantle of number one in the world past Kristen, but I think it's very clear to me that on the right courses, if Paige continues to kind of get her timing back and tune up the upshots, that like she is going to be a problem.
And I just like it's hard to be afraid of Paige when you just got Kristen still just at the top of the leaderboard, which is why I pick Eagle, because I think on the MPO side you have several players right now vying for what is kind of the top spot. Yeah, AB, but he's in his slump. Gannon has been playing well, but only has one win. You've got Calvin now, who's kind of charging with a couple wins. Like the mantle for that top player in MPO right now is still up for grabs this season, and that's why I think Eagle playing well, and if he continues to improve and progress, could very quickly become in that mix or the leader of that mix. Whereas I just have a hard time, like you mentioned, seeing Paige taking it over from Kristen. So my answer is Eagle.
Fair. I mean, we certainly have seen the evidence that Eagle can be that guy. I do think Paige looks closer to back than Eagle.
I think you're right about that, though.
So, all right. Let's get this one out of the way. From Devin. I had a thought about the crappy baskets that we've been seeing on tour. I think they should put to rest the smaller basket discussion. If we went to smaller baskets, they would be the same or worse than what we've seen. Bad baskets are effectively the same as smaller baskets, just wrapped in a worse package. Even the bad baskets have spots that will catch, making the putting target effectively smaller.
Well, Devin, you are behind because we put to rest the smaller basket discussion years ago.
I just revived it from the dead, Josh.
How dare you, Charlie? We've done an effective job of burying that discussion. Look, yes. Yeah, I mean, you're right that bad baskets do have like spots that will catch, but I think the problem with this idea of like, oh yes, they'll catch well in certain spots is that I don't think they catch consistently in those spots, right? It's a case of spin, nose angle, speed, like all those things mean that the high right or the low right side on like a DD veteran are going to catch just a little bit differently every single time for those players. And your prodigy ones that have those cross chains are kind of still like spit center pull sometimes if the putt doesn't come in with the right angle or pace. So that to me is the issue with bad baskets, is that there are so many little variabilities. It's just not as replicable in my opinion as something like a free throw and how a free throw is going to react. There's just too many variables, including wind as well, that just are going to play into effect in that. And so in my opinion, then those bad baskets, it's like the inconsistency of them. Even if a basket will typically kick out high right, it won't always, depending on that putting style.
I have nothing to add. Continue.
Great. Let's go.
I don't want to talk about the smaller baskets.
Let's
start by just having good baskets at every tournament, and then we can talk about if we want to make them smaller.
It was interesting. I wish, I want the Pro Tour to go through and like redo their basket approval process. And
all right, well, it's time.
Well, Charlie, let me read you one more email real quick, and then it's time. And then it's time. Justin says, it's clear the MVP black holes are the best baskets being used at the OTB Open. How's about how's about we talk about when a basket design has gotten it right? Man, I can just like feel the swagger in this email just over the text. How's about we talk about when a basket design has gotten it right and should be the standard, rather than just talking about bad baskets and how players change their putts so they stick in bad baskets. Also, people seem to really love the turf at OTB. We're not getting into T-pads today, Justin.
The new turf is pretty good, except it doesn't drain well. It's a problem. Yeah. It doesn't drain well. They got to figure out something to make it drain better. But I'm sure that's a solvable problem. All right. MVP baskets, solid basket. Solid basket. They do have a tendency to spit out low putts on the edges, worse than other baskets. But if you jam the chains on the pole, they are glue.
Yeah,
which is nice because watching people spit dead centers back out is the worst thing. Josh, I want to do basket power rankings.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So as far as I know, there are 6 primary baskets that are used on tour. Now, sometimes tournaments have older versions, or there's a hole in the bottom of the basket and Corey Ellis's disc falls out of it. Stuff happens, but for the most part, and in no particular order, the baskets are DGA Mach X's, Discraft Chainstar Pro, Prodigy T2, DD Veterans. I think sometimes Latitude 64 has Veterans branded the same. MVP Black Hole and Innova Disc Catcher Pro, as far as I know. So, Josh, give us your power rankings. Okay. Start from the bottom.
Well, Charlie, this one should be obvious. The DD Veterans are at the bottom. I think the thing with Veterans are that like they extended, and we talked about this. I think it was on a Rapid Reacts when we got the specs. The distance from the top of the band to the cage is less than some of the other baskets. And I think the idea with that was to try and catch those like low side putts, those left and right putts that are low better. But in fact, by putting the chains closer to the edge of the cage, all you did was just make like the worst kind of spit outs possible on the left and right sides low, in addition to like just middle spit outs. They're terrible. They are just the worst baskets. And I don't think they should be on tour anymore. Charlie, are we going to alternate, or do you want me to just hit all 6 of mine?
Why don't we alternate?
Okay, all right. So who do you got in your set?
I also have the veteran. I mean, come on.
All right.
It's not even close.
It's not.
Honestly, there's tiers, and I'll talk about my tiers. Veterans are in a bottom tier of their own right now. They need a redesign. It's just that simple. You want to be on tour, you got to do a redesign. Discraft had horrible chain stars, and they did a redesign, and now they have good baskets.
Yeah.
So it's just like it's no longer acceptable to use these baskets on tour. So yes, I have DDs at the bottom. I'll give you my next one, and then you can go. Next up, number 5, definitely a big step up, but still 5th in the second from the bottom. Prodigy T2s. They got the weird side chains. They're okay. They're okay. I don't despise these baskets, but they're just not as good as the other ones. They give you some weird spits too because of the extra heavy chains in the middle of the sort of the chain assembly.
I think these actually punish, like I think there are putters who talk about having to like putt with pace and slow down putts a little bit to adapt to baskets. I think these actually punish some soft putts because of that inner chain. It has a hard time getting to the pole. I also have seen we've got some at a local course. There's some weird left and right reactions where like sometime the outer ring will catch it when it's spitting left, sometimes it won't, and it just misses out. So that they definitely are above the DDs, but like C tier, right? They're in their own class as well, and it's somewhere right in the middle. All right. In the 4 spot then. So now this is where we move. Any of these 4 baskets, in my opinion, are acceptable baskets. And I'm good with any of them on tour. In the 4 spot, for me, the DGA Mach X. I think it's a good basket. It's a fine basket. It's another one of those that's like really, really heavy and rewards those putters who putt really hard. Soft putts sometimes can be punished by the Mach X's. But all in all, they catch it really well. I saw something that I don't courses around here at least don't have Mach X's or Mach 7s either. Like we just don't see those a lot around where I'm at. But the lack of a band almost makes like a ramp so that when you miss putts high, you can get weird reactions with your disc because it doesn't just have a standard band.
It doesn't just clank and come straight back.
It doesn't.
But sometimes you get some extra catches because of that. It's just
sometimes
I don't like
it's
the
weird.
bandless design.
Yeah,
it doesn't look as professional for some reason.
You also can't advertise,
right?
Pro
I
Tour.
mean, it's just something nice about a basket where they can put the name of the tournament on it, and you can really make it look crisp and clean. Even if it's a 10-year-old basket, as long as you can put new wrap on the band. And so I would just actually like to see the Mach design have a banded option, kind of like we have beaded and beadless putters. Like they kind of need to do that, I think, if they want to remain like a relevant touring basket.
Sure. So it's on my 4 spot, but good basket. I mean,
We are definitely. I feel the same way, right? So number 4 for me is the MVP Black Hole.
Okay.
But to me, again, we've stepped another tier up, and really all of the top 4 baskets are solid, very solid. I go MVP Black Hole. I don't know. I find it hard to differentiate here. A lot of this is sort of just like random personal preference on what I've putted on and what I think looks good. I think they all have their quirks in terms of catchability, and I think if you ask different pros, you'd get different answers for what their favorite is. Number 3 for me is the Mach X. I'm just going to go to the top. Number 2
go.
is the redesigned Chain Star Pro. It's a really good basket. I think there's a lot of pros who like this one the most. Mm-hmm. But for me, it's Disc Catcher at the top. The Innova Disc Catcher Pro is it's iconic. The yellow, it's a super fair basket. It's much like the AVR. It is the basis for other baskets to try to emulate in terms of like, let's have a really fair target. I feel like Disc Catchers are super fair. I don't think any pro would be mad if they said it's Disc Catchers at every tournament.
I don't think so either. For my rankings, Charlie, the only thing I do is I actually pull the MVP Black Hole out. I go Mach X, Chain Star Pro, Disc Catcher Pro, and then the MVP Black Holes have actually taken my top spot. Let me tell you why. The Disc Catcher Pros, for some reason, and this is solely personal preference. These two, the MVP Black Hole and the Disc Catcher Pro, are what all the courses around here are really those 2 baskets.
Okay.
I find that on the Disc Catcher Pro that I will hit right side, and sometimes my putt will just drop and kind of miss the cage when it falls right side. And I know it means I'm putting a little bit too wide, but it gives me the feeling that I've made it, and then it doesn't go in. And so it's definitely not a spit out. It's definitely a miss. But for me, if I hit solid on the black holes, I know it's in the basket. And that to me is something that just mentally I prefer to see. It may not catch quite as many as the Disc Catcher Pro, but to me optically and how my putts feel, it feels the most fair to me. Whereas Disc Catchers occasionally I'm like, that probably could have stuck. And so for me, Black Hole gets the spot above, but I think, like you said, any of these baskets on tour, I think would be just fine.
All right. Well, those are our power rankings. Send in your own. Some people are going to send us raging emails about this, but please do. Please do.
We're going to get some emails.
All right. Let's see. This is a reaction to last week's pod. Comes from Dan. Felt like Josh was a little out of touch with reality on this latest episode. I love his thoughts and commentary and usually agree with his takes, but asking for Holland to be 40% from Circle 2 and saying that was the reason she wasn't winning is a bit far-fetched. Admittedly, she didn't have a good weekend from C2, but her issue wasn't her Circle 2 percentage, but her OB rate in that final round. And then expectation that the color commentators have such an in-depth course knowledge that they know what each player has in front of them when they throw errant shots is wild. I'm stoked when color commentators can talk intelligently about expected shots in the fairway, but ask them to know what a player has when they go way off track is, again, unrealistic. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that's basically it. Thoughts? The direct call out.
First off, I'm going to start with saying Dan is right. I seriously almost had... Okay, so my discussion of Holland's C2 season putting was way off the mark. And I was going off of what I... anecdote anecdotally was feeling, based on just my impression of Holland, and not on season stats, because at the time, didn't have access to season stats, or so I thought. I'll come back to that. It was to the point that I almost had our editor cut that out, because Dan, you're 100% spot on the season issues there. I was wrong on that. However, she had a horrendous Circle 2 putting weekend. And while you're right that her OB rate is the problem, when you, in the past 2 rounds, went 1 for 14 on Circle 2 putting, you're going to push shots and try and take more difficult lines to get closer to the basket because you don't trust yourself outside of 33 feet. And that's going to lead to your OB rate going up. Players who don't trust their putt and aren't feeling confident about it are going to try and do more off the green and more in the fairways, and that's going to lead to more mistakes in that category as well. And so I still think that that's true, and is the case that her inability to putt this weekend from Circle 2 led to the pressure kind of breaking down her game in the final round that led to those OBs. That's kind of the point, all encompassing, that I wanted to highlight, at least to OTB specifically. Second thing that I think Fair JVD pointed out in the Discord after this episode aired is that Disc Golf Pro Tour has season stats up, Charlie.
Wow.
I don't know why you wouldn't announce that from the rooftop.
Because it was embarrassing that they didn't have it until now. That has to be
they want to be like, no, we've had it up for a while, guys. I promise. I don't know when this actually went live. JVD put the link in the Discord, dgpt.com /season stats, season dash stats /
Yeah, if you go to the website, on the very top bar header, you have scores, stats, and standings that you can click. And is scores updated again? Yeah. So like you can now look, the website is a little janky. It's a little ugly. It's definitely not UDisc. Yeah. But there are scores, stats, and standings now available on the dgpt.com website. That is an important achievement, and we can accept ugliness for now.
That's right. And listen, it feels like someone gave me use of my left hand back. So stats are back, and we will be referencing those regularly now as we continue to go on throughout the show. Third point, though, the idea that the color commentators need to have like a more in-depth knowledge. I'm not saying they have to know every exact spot, but if someone goes left side and comes out early, they should know the kind of shot shape that's going to be required to access the green. If they went right side, same thing. Where in the fairway they are, if they made it to an ideal landing zone versus if they're shorter. I'm sorry, I don't think that it is unreasonable that color commentators have to do more prep to speak more intelligently about the courses and not just about the shots in like an isolated vacuum. That is the fastest way, in my opinion, to ruin the golf, is when you cannot speak intelligently about the way the shot and the hole is forcing players to choose and make shots, because otherwise it's just, it makes no sense about why players are making the choices that they are. There's no actual value or impressiveness. It completely ruins the experience for me when I don't understand what's happening on that hole, and that's the job of the color commentators in DGN.
Listen, you're not wrong. I mean, I think the question is, how do you get that information, right?
Sure.
The color commentators knowing it better is good, but using the on-course reporter who can actually see the lie,
yes,
and actually comment on what they see, and it's almost always Brian, Nate, and Terry. These are all deeply experienced players and commentators who can evaluate a lie and know the players well enough to be able to say they're going to have a look from here. But it's also about player strengths and weaknesses, like when Missy Gannon is in a bush and she's going to be forced to throw a forehand, like that's a spot where her percentage chances of making a good shot go down because she doesn't have a strong forehand. Yeah. And, you can pick your players about their strengths and weaknesses all you want. Like if it's Mando forehand for Kristen, she's going to be 95% to make a great shot. If it's Mando, step out backhand in a patent pending stance, so that's part of it too. But I agree with you. I mean, otherwise we're just watching and we're like, what is the point of us being in the booth?
Right.
Right? We're just here having some popcorn with you. I mean, look, some of that is what goes on sometimes, but I do think as much as possible, trying to give that next level of insight is what makes the shots interesting, especially as you're coming down the stretch. Part of that is also course design. Are the courses actually making those shots more difficult because of the way the fairway is designed, or is it just that there's like massive landing zones and it doesn't matter where you end up? So anyway.
And I do agree. I like the idea of using, and I think down the stretch, DGN does a really good job of using the on-course reporter. It doesn't happen nearly as often in early rounds. And so, yeah, use that resource.
What's next?
Let's hit. All right. This one was a little bit older in the Discord, but I think is a really excellent point. Someone was talking about the shed. The shed was a topic of discussion in the Discord. Can you believe it, Charlie? And Josiah did the work of pulling up most major podiums by current touring pros who are in the top 100 on MPO DGPT standings and the top 50 in the FPO DGPT standings without a major win. So this is most major podiums without a major win.
Most podiums without having actually won it. Okay.
Correct. From active players.
Sure.
Your lead on MPO. Charlie, can you guess who it is?
Calvin.
Give you a hint. No, it is not Calvin. Calvin is on this list, but it is not Calvin. It is Simon Lizotte with 5 podiums.
That makes sense to me.
Makes a lot of sense.
Playing a long time.
Yep. Your 4 spot, or your in your number 2 spot with 4 podiums is Matty O.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Matt Oram. Yeah. And then you've got a tie down here at 3 podiums. That's Calvin Heimberg, Nicholas Ontala, Paul Ulibarri, and Cale Laviska. Someone pointed out Nicholas doesn't really feel like he's in the shed just because of how he just hasn't been playing that long.
Yeah, he's still pretty young.
So,
he has really only been touring a couple of years.
So that's someone's kind of exception. But the rest of these players are pretty. I mean, Calvin's the next youngest, and then the other 4 are quite established on tour.
Yeah. These are all guys who desperately want a major win for their legacy.
Yeah.
And they're great players. They're all great players. Most of them are Hall of Famers. But they're in the shed right now. They're not in the hall.
Yeah. Yep.
They're in the shed next to the hall.
They're in the shed next to the hall. Remember, again, everybody, that there's two parts to the shed. There's the has never won a DGPT event or Elite Series event shed, and then there's the has won those events but has not won a major level of the shed. So, like Matty O, for example, got to move to the 2nd level of the shed.
It's a better appointed shed.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's like the penthouse shed.
There's there's drinks and snacks and things of that nature. All right, so I'll give you the FPO side.
Okay.
This is wild. The leader has 7 podiums in 15 major appearances. I know you probably already looked at this, but can you guess who it is?
Okay, let's see if who would I have guessed if I hadn't looked?
7 podiums in 15 major appearances, 0 wins. It's gettable.
I think 15 major appearances. It means the problem with that, like my initial, if you hadn't told me that part, I would have said Own. Right, Own would have been my top pick for most of the podiums.
Own's a good guess. She's in 2nd.
Okay. I have looked though, so I won't
just tell us then.
Belabor the point. It's Hannah Blomroos.
That is wild, dude. 7 podiums, no wins. She has not yet won an Elite Series either.
No, I don't think so.
Wow. I mean, you talk about a shed player. I mean, this is like she's an icon. I mean, a tremendous talent, and the putting just cannot. It's just not there.
Yeah.
And unless it gets there, she may never win.
Well, that or if the Memorial comes back on tour.
7 podiums in 15 appearances. I mean, that's amazing. Like, you have to acknowledge both that she's played super well, and I don't even think that counts. Like, throw Pinks, where I'm pretty sure she's been on the podium at least once.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But to never have won at all, it's just, you got to have a higher level of consistency and have a complete game. So, its 2nd is Own with 4, and then you've got a big logjam of people at 2. Lisa Fakis, Jessica Weiss, Madison Walker, is that right? How about that? I didn't know that.
Look at that.
Jen Allen, Valerie Mondahano, and Holland Handley.
Yeah, but Holland's got throw pink. Like, I know she doesn't have a real M, but like, I wouldn't. Yeah. It's dumb. It's not a major.
Next up, this one comes from Pat. So I'm into disc golf for 3 years now and in pretty deep. Welcome, Pat. Listening to the discussion on free admission for card-carrying PDGA members, and it is a great idea. I'm a tennis professional. He's a coach. And our organization, the U.S. Professional Tennis Association, offers free admission to the Summer Series tournaments that are part of the U.S. Open Series. The tournament can place a limit on how many free tickets, and it is always for the earlier rounds. This would make for a good model for the PDGA to follow.
Especially if you had walk-on tickets available for later rounds that people pay for general admission, 1,000%. Because imagine if you go Thursday or Friday for free, right? And you're a casual who wasn't planning on going or doesn't know disc golf that well. You take your free ticket, you come watch, and you're like, holy smokes, this was incredible. I need to come watch the finals. Then you'll pay for a Sunday GA ticket.
Exactly.
Love it.
It's a literal absolute no-brainer for this to happen. The Pro Tour should consider something similar.
Yeah.
They obviously don't have members, but they could just offer it to PDGA members, or they could just offer it to anybody.
Yep.
Like, even if it's once or twice a year, like, it's DGPT Family Day, free on Thursday of whatever tournament.
Yes.
First round, like, you're not selling that many tickets to the first round normally anyway, so why not? Right? This is how you get... I mean, they give away the first round of DGN every week.
Right.
Well, how is this different?
DGPT hosts Family Fridays, and you can get a $1 bag of popcorn, and you get to go in for free.
Or maybe I think kids are already free, or like you have like super cheap tickets. Yeah. It's like $10, but you get a free hot dog and a drink, or something like that. Yeah, I went to a single A baseball game in Coney Island last year. It was $20, and I got a hat, a hot dog, a drink, and sat right behind home plate.
Jeez. With inflation these days, that you made your money back.
So yeah, I just think there's a lot of opportunities to get away from this really rigid $20, $30, $40 approach. Like, the early round should be very cheap. Like, no one's coming. There's barely any people out there. Revenue maximization needs to be thought about kind of over the longer term.
Thanks, Pat. Thanks for writing in. We agree with that. All right. Let's move to Justin here. Justin did some work for us here, Charlie.
Love it.
I love Mailbag when they do work for us.
If you put in the time, you're going to get on the air.
You absolutely are. Justin did some quick number crunching after we talked about giving Gannon Burr 2 strokes around. Now, again, this is the 2 strokes around we were referring to, him averaging 2 spit outs per round. This was in like the midst of his just extreme spit out. So it probably balances out to around this. He calculated how it would change his placements and cash. Without doing ties, he just moved him up to solo spots and cash, no splits. Gannon would have won 6 out of the 8 Elite Series or Majors played thus far, with a total cash of $77,000. He currently sits at 1 out of 8 with $34,800. I don't know if this was prior to OTB Open, but regardless, that's the numbers that we've got there. Again, two strokes is maybe a lot, but I could imagine this being somewhere in the middle where Gannon's got 3 or 4 wins.
Yeah. I mean, he has the highest birdie rate on tour already.
Yeah.
And it definitely feels like there's been rounds where he loses 2 or 3 strokes to what feels like kind of unfortunate basket choices. He's we got another email, and I didn't pull it in for the whole thing, but like basically made the point, I think it was from Devin, that if Gannon changed his putting style, he would have fewer spit outs but miss more. So it would net out to being worse or at least the same. And like part of Gannon's extreme ability to put the disc on chains, which like he means, of course, he's one of the best putters on tour, means that we're going to see a higher frequency of spit outs because he's simply giving the disc more chances to spit out, which is also probably true. So interesting to think about. All right. This is an amazing one. Talk about putting in the work. This is the throwback right here from Dave. Dave said, I sent this in for the first ever Reel It In or Cut It Loose episode nearly 6 years ago.
I love throwbacks. Like
this is throwing back to before Josh was on the show.
This would be Steve Hill, still, wouldn't it?
No, Reel It In and Cut Me Loose was a Jamie Thomas special.
It was a Jamie Thomas special.
It was his idea, and we did it.
It must have been an early Jamie Thomas.
Pretty early.
Probably, yeah.
Pretty early.
Because I'm going like 3 years on the show now.
I think that's right.
And how long was Jamie on the show?
2 or 3 years.
Yeah, so this is probably early Jamie Thomas time then.
So the take to be reeled in or cut loose was a female player who is not even on tour yet beats Paige Pierce to 1,000 rated. He asked me if I remember what call I made. I do not remember, but I almost guarantee you I cut it loose.
You had to, right?
The question, so the thing is, I don't remember when that episode was, and was it like when Paige Pierce had just missed? Right?
No,
I probably was before that, right? Because that was that was post-pandemic.
That was post-COVID.
Yeah. So I think there's almost no way I would have said that unless my case was like, it's not happening for a long time, and therefore Paige will be out of the game.
Yeah.
Anyway, he is taking a look at his take. He says the question is, when do you consider Kristen being on tour? In 2017, she played Konopiste when it was a World Tour event. She played European Open, and she played the U.S. Women's Championship. Her first NT and her first Worlds were both in 2018 after this episode aired. Was she on tour in 2017? I don't think so either. I think this is just a legendary take. Now, even Dave would probably admit that he had no idea that it would be this quick and this sort of meteoric.
Yeah.
He says, so I was right, but mostly I'm stoked she hit the 1,000 rated mark. It's a huge milestone for the women's game.
Listen, Charlie, I think Dave deserves our mail of the week this week.
That seems like a mailbag question of the week kind of a moment. We're going to hook Dave up with free mini subscription to Multi-World Disc Golf so he can join the Discord, listen to our Out the Back sub bonus segments, exclusive articles, and more. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks. All right.
You're up, Josh.
Okay. I think I'm gonna go with Ryan's email here. To say that moving the Champions Cup to Stockton is diluting the Champions Cup as the Woods Major is simply ridiculous. Let the event grow as it needs to. Obviously, the PDGA's best laid plans didn't quite work out. Calling it a major was an artificial label from the beginning. Calling it a Woods Major after only a few years is silly. There's not enough traditional historical record of this event to claim it as the Woods Major. Personally, 4 rounds of Northwood was not great viewing, and I can imagine it worse on the ground than it was at DGN. And he says, then this is where it kind of transitions. Personally, and if you know this, if you've read my emails over the years, you know, I lament disc golf's overall attitude towards the West. The West is great for the tour. The Shawns produce better events than anyone on tour, and the courses are super fun to watch because I can actually see the fairways in the shot. I welcome this change. I want the better weather, more spectators, and more pageantry. The South and the Midwest is lacking the swag of the West Coast. The tour needs more swag and less camo.
Ryan from Santa Fe. Always good for a good email.
Love that. You know what's so funny to me is that the Ledgestone Zuka carts are the blue, red, and white camo. Love it. Go Ryan. That's such a funny email. Charlie, the reason I picked this email though is you were one who kind of lamented the loss of the Woods major. So go ahead and respond.
So look, I mean, Ryan makes a fair point. It's not like there's a lot of legacy here. It's not like this is a 20-year history of Woods tournament and then they didn't go Woods. But I don't know, like you have to start somewhere with the culture of a tournament. And by the choices that they have made through the first 3 years of the Champions Cup, the culture that they had chosen was we're doing Woods in the spring, which is nice because typically we don't get wooded courses for real until the fall when we're in the Northeast.
Yes.
And so then they're just like randomly sending this tournament to California on a golf course track. Tell me how that, like, I get your, he's right that like there isn't very much to lean on here, but now what is this tournament? I think the clear argument is this is just a blip. We needed TDs to run this tournament. We wanted it to be run well. We know they're going to do a good job. And when we get our course back at the International Disc Golf Center in Georgia, we will put it back there and everybody can shut up, which I think is totally fair argument, all of it. Look, it's not like I think this is the worst thing of all time or anything. I just think that the PDGA had an opportunity, knowing that they weren't going to have the tournament in Georgia next year, to maybe kick some tires on wood course options, since like that is what people are expecting.
I talked about Milo. Like I agree. I agree with that. But I love the defense of the West Coast.
Love it.
The passionate defense of the West Coast.
I mean, if you look at the map of where the Pro Tour has its tournaments, it's pretty grim.
It is.
Like literally nothing in your neck of the woods, Josh. Nothing.
Nope.
In the Mountain West, which really doesn't make sense because it does really clearly feel like there should be a mountain course on tour. It's a classic course. It is a classic course style. Everyone wants to watch 850-foot downhill par threes.
Yep.
It's the sixth shot.
And you have courses that, like literally Solitude down in Utah, you ride the ski lift to the top of the mountain and then you play down with the last shot being down. You have, there's literally on the T-post, you have the menu for the cafe. You can call in your order.
My God.
And get your food ready down at the cafe when you get down to the bottom.
Dream.
And then you throw clear down the hill. It's incredible. You've got the big view. You've got the resort down below. It's gorgeous.
And like that's right there in Salt Lake. It's right there.
Right by Salt Lake.
If you go to the Salt Lake and you've skied those mountains, you know a lot of those ski mountains are 15 minutes from Salt Lake.
Yeah.
Like I mean, the Park City Mountains are like a literal short Uber ride from the airport.
Yeah.
To me, it's an obvious play. Like I know we've tried Colorado and it was like, it's hard because the Colorado mountains are like, and courses are far away from Denver. Salt Lake doesn't have that problem. And the Infinite's there. I don't know, like make it happen, folks. I mean, if we need to put in a more championship level course, just somebody build it. It's like, we have a giant ski mountain. I know you can find fairways. It can be done.
It'd be fun. It'd be so.
It would be so cool.
So cool.
And it fits right on the tour. It's no problem.
Could you imagine having to be a DGN camera operator though, lugging a camera around up a ski
Hopefully
mountain?
they get to do the downhill style for the most part, because it's physical.
It is. It really is. But I agree. I'm with you. All right, Charlie. What do we got?
I think we have one more.
Okay.
Since the beginning of the season, this one comes from Mac. According to the Disc Golf Pro Tour YouTube channel, the live stream numbers for round one in all tournaments for FPO have been as follows. He says it doesn't include DGN because he doesn't know how to find the viewer numbers. Let's assume that it's a fairly decent proxy. Also, if your real ones know, even if you're a DGN subscriber, you watch round one on YouTube. Like, yeah, it's nice when the app works the whole time.
Listen, Charlie. I have watched every round on DGN. If I watch live, I watch it on DGN this year. I have not watched it on YouTube.
Can you
once.
explain your rationale?
It just. I'm like, oh, I watch disc golf. Like the notification pops up that DGN is live. I click on it. It opens it up in the app, and I watch it on DGN. And
surely you're not alone.
It has worked. It has worked.
That's fair. You're watching usually on a computer?
No, my phone.
And you haven't had the issues with the phone? iOS app you can swipe out, and then it's like the little box, and you can do other stuff on your phone, but that dies after about 15 minutes with regularity.
I don't think I've ever gone 15 minutes with it down in the corner.
Okay.
So I'll have to try pushing it. But
I mean, look, it's not the end of the world. It's just annoying.
I guess you just need to get.
So I watch on YouTube because then I can swipe and the YouTube app doesn't cancel me out.
Right.
Anyway, here's the numbers. Okay, Chess.com 55,000, Waco 65,000, Austin 56,000, U.S. Women 62,000, Texas State's 44,000, Jonesboro 47,000, Music City Open 44,000, Champions Cup 52,000, DDO 37,000, OTB 36,000. And Max says, for the record, I'm not going to write all the numbers, but Jomez numbers for front nines, where Europeans are present, is about 10 to 15,000 viewers higher than when they are not, and an even higher number when Kristen is in contention. So you can see where this is going. How much do you think the European women, and specifically Kristen, have to do with these numbers? Chess.com is hard to say because it's the first event and everyone wants to watch it, so it being the third highest isn't surprising, although it is notable that Kristen wasn't there. Waco, when Kristen returned, was the highest by 9,000 over Austin, where she's coming off a win and everyone probably wants to see if she'll continue. What's really notable to me is the two most recent events, where there's no Kristen and no solid European showing, have almost 10,000 fewer viewers than when Kristen and Evelina and Henna are in the field. Are the Europeans the saving grace for FPO, and should the DGPT be worried about how much they need to rely on them showing up?
Yes, they're the saving grace. I really do think the Europeans play an important role in bumping up viewership and the excitement. We've looked at the level of some of these tournaments when the Europeans are not there, and it is just starkly different as opposed to when they are there. I mean, how many tournaments now, when we're looking at the top tens, that half of them are Europeans? The Europeans are dominating FPO right now. I don't think it's a worry, though, that you need to rely on them showing up. I think that that's clear that the DGPT made their pivot towards the European swing, and including a stretch of European tour, the importance of catering to European viewers and the European scene, and that as we continue to develop a tour that is both based in the United States and Europe, that you create an avenue and a pipeline in which you can help players from Europe access disc golf tour cards, and make sure that like young players who are like 18, 19 are playing at the level where they're actually going to be able to earn money and take the investment, and for sponsors to want to pay for them to come over to the US as well. Like, I think the DGPT has created a really strong framework moving forward to bring and involve more Europeans in the tour. And so I don't think that's a problem. In fact, I think it's a big benefit that we have, and storylines that we have, the Americans versus the Europeans, that drives DGPT viewers. I think it's a great thing for disc golf.
Yeah, I listen, I think, is it some kind of shock that you're less inclined to tune in to FPO when we're missing the players who have been the best this season? I mean, Kristen, Evelina not being there, just clearly reduces the quality at the top of the division and makes it less I think there are other potential confounding factors here. Time of the year, timing of the actual round when it's starting. Are more people inclined to watch Eastern time tournaments than West Coast time tournaments in the morning during FPO? I don't know, but I don't know if you can necessarily say with any kind of certainty at this point that this is that clearly the reason is Europeans not being there. But I mean, I feel less intrigued by the results, don't you?
Oh, definitely.
I mean, it just is what it is. I'm going to be more likely to tune in to watch European tournaments. No, not FPO. I'm not getting up at 3:30 in the morning, but I'll catch the replay for these more competitive tournaments that are coming up, because I think not only is it refreshing to see new courses, but yeah, I want to see Evelina playing. I want to see Henna playing. Mm-hmm. Kristen, we got to wait a while.
Yes, we do.
Anyway, interesting concept. That's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. if you are so inclined and you're a disc sports fan, the College Ultimate Championships are taking place this weekend in Madison, Wisconsin. Ultiworld will have live coverage of over 70 games from pool play through the early part of the bracket and the semifinals. The finals are live on ESPNU, which is available in most cable packages. And you can maybe go to a sports bar and watch it there if you just want to check out the finals. Josh, we have our annual tradition here. You want to pick some teams?
Let's pick some teams. All right, Charlie, let's do this.
So give me your parameters again.
Okay. I'm going to give you some different parameters this year.
Okay.
Okay, ready? Yep. For those who don't know, I have started watching the Ultimate Frisbee Association, the UFA, formerly the
AUDL.
AUDL, that's what it was. I've been trying to break that out of my brain.
It's impossible. I still do it too.
It's so hard. And I am a Salt Lake Shred fan. I've been watching all their games live. I subscribe to the UFA TV, and we'll be going down on June 8th to watch their live game. So, Charlie, let me ask you this. Grant Lindsley, where did he play college ultimate?
Oh, that is a great question. And he went to a storied institution, and that is Carleton College. Carleton maybe would otherwise be a sort of mostly unknown liberal arts institution in Northfield, Minnesota. But it is an iconic Frisbee school. Iconic still. In fact, when you go to freshman welcome day at Carleton, every single person gets an Ultra Star and they do a big Frisbee toss.
That's incredible.
Yes.
That's so cool.
There's an article up about that on Ultiworld from back in the day. So Frisbee is part of their marketing for the college. So many of the world's finest high school prospects go to Carleton. It's kind of cultish. They a lot of people get the Carleton cut tattoo. The women's program is also very good. And both Carleton programs are represented. The men's team is the number 11 seed. They are playing Georgia, Oregon, NC State, and Wash U in their pool. Carleton is a volatile team. They have had some terrible losses, and they've had some big wins this year. Declan Miller, sophomore, was one of the big star rookies last year. He got hurt and couldn't play nationals, but he's back and ready to roll, and they've got a good team. I mean, they definitely could get some upsets in that pool. The women's team, Josh, if you want to just stay all Carleton, is the 3 seed. A championship contender, but there's a lot of teams that could win this year. UBC, Vermont, North Carolina, Oregon, Stanford, Colorado, and Carleton is in that mix for sure.
Is North Carolina coming off of
back-to-back three-peats for both the men's and women's teams at Chapel Hill, North Carolina?
Well, we're rooting against them.
I think literally anybody who doesn't live in North Carolina is rooting against UNC this year.
Okay. Oh, I guess I'll root for Carleton on both sides. It makes life easy. So there you go. Moving forward, I'm just going to pick players on the Salt Lake Shred, and we'll just pick their alma mater for the college championship.
You picked a good choice because I think a lot of these guys went to BYU who can't go to nationals because they don't play on Sundays, and other Utah schools that don't mostly make nationals.
Sure.
So
no, that makes sense.
The Utah women's team is at nationals. They are. They're going to be one of the worst teams there. If they win a couple games, that'd be pretty sweet.
At least they made it, right?
Yeah,
it's good for them.
So there you go.
Cool.
If you want to follow along, ultiworld.com all weekend long. There are some free games up on our YouTube channel. You can kick things off Friday morning. I think it's 10:30 Central. UNC versus Brown in the men's division. Brown has been kind of the UNC killer. So a great one to watch. Some fantastic players in that game. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We will talk to you next week right here on The Upshot.